It started with a whisper. I never imagined it would end this way. Yet looking back, I see how foolish I was to miss the signs. It wasn't a loud argument, a slammed door, or a crying scene you would expect in those movies. No, it all started with an offhand comment, one I overheard by accident, like a tiny thread pulled loose from a sweater that began to unravel my entire life. I was in the garage, rummaging through old boxes, when I overheard my wife, Elias, talking on the phone. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but I had to stop what I was doing. Her voice was lower than usual, almost as if she were trying to hide it, but her words hit me like a punch to the stomach. I can't do this anymore. I'm leaving him soon. It's over, she said, her tone almost casual, as if she were discussing plans for a weekend getaway, not the end of a marriage. I froze. My mind raced, trying to process what I had just heard. Elias, my wife of 8 years. The woman I thought I knew inside and out. I never once questioned our relationship. We had been through highs and lows, sure, but we were solid, or so I believed. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe for a moment. It was like time had paused, and I was trapped in this space between the words she had said and the overwhelming fear I felt in my chest. The last thing I expected to hear was that she was planning to leave me. I should have confronted her right then and there, but something stopped me. A quiet voice inside me told me to hold back, to see how far this went. I needed to understand. I needed to know why. I stayed in the garage for a while longer, pretending to sort through the boxes, while my brain went into overdrive. Who was she talking to? Who could possibly be involved? And more importantly, why wasn't I enough? What had changed? What had I missed? That night, after Elias came home, I couldn't look at her the same way. Every glance felt like a lie. Every word she spoke felt rehearsed. She smiled at me, made some small talk, but the warmth that once existed between us was gone. It felt like I was looking at a stranger, someone who was no longer emotionally connected to me, no longer invested in the life we had built together. And that hurt more than anything. The thought that she was living some hidden life, while I was still trapped in the illusion of our perfect marriage. The days after were strange. I didn't bring it up. I couldn't. Part of me still hoped it was a mistake, a misunderstanding. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. The small gestures that had once shown her affection were gone. The kisses, the cuddles, the laughter, all replaced by a cold indifference I couldn't ignore. I began to notice little things that made the truth undeniable. Elias had started spending more time out of the house, going on errands that never seemed to end. I caught her texting at odd hours, and sometimes I would hear her voice on the phone late at night, but she would always hang up quickly when I entered the room. I tried to tell myself I was just paranoid, that I was imagining things, but something inside me knew. I felt it in my bones. My wife was planning to leave me, and I had no idea what had happened between us. But I wasn't going to be the fool who waited around to be blindsided. I had to act before she did. So, I decided to leave first. I didn't know what she would do or how she would react, but I couldn't wait for her to drop the bomb on me. I couldn't sit by and let her make me feel insignificant. I had been the one who worked late hours, supported her dreams, made sacrifices for our future, and now, it seemed I was nothing more than an afterthought. The decision wasn't easy. I spent hours weighing the consequences, questioning if I was doing the right thing. But in the end, I knew it was the only way I could take back control of my life. That night, I packed a bag, grabbed my things, and left the house. I didn't tell her where I was going. I didn't leave a note. I just walked out. I wanted her to feel the same shock, the same uncertainty that I had felt when I overheard her planning her escape. I checked into a small motel on the outskirts of town, unsure of what would come next. The emptiness inside me was suffocating, but at least I was no longer waiting for her to make the first move. The next few days were a blur. I kept my distance from Elias. She tried calling, leaving messages, but I didn't answer. I couldn't. I wasn't ready to face her yet. I wasn't sure if I ever would be. Then, 4 days later, she showed up at the motel. I didn't expect it, but there she was, standing in front of the door, looking lost. Her eyes were red, her face pale, and for the first time in weeks, she looked like she was actually seeing me. "What the hell, Elias?" she said, her voice trembling. "What's going on? Why did you leave? I didn't think you'd just leave." I looked at her, and in that moment, I realized something. She wasn't just shocked, she was terrified. Terrified that I had taken control of the situation, terrified that I had left first, not her. You were planning to leave me, Mara, I said, my voice colder than I intended. I overheard you. You said it yourself. You were done. So, I left first. You can't just drop that kind of bomb on someone and expect them to stay in the dark forever. Her face fell. She didn't say anything at first, just stood there, blinking as if the world was spinning too fast for her to catch up. I didn't think you'd find out, she whispered, her voice barely audible. The truth hit me like a slap. She didn't think I'd find out. That's what this whole thing had been about. Her taking control, thinking she could make the decision without me. But in that moment, I realized that I was the one who had been blindsided. I was the one who had been living in the dark, waiting for a reality that was never going to come. And now, with everything out in the open, I had the power to change everything. The question was, what would I do with it? The days dragged on, each one longer than the last. I kept my distance from Mara, not answering her calls, not responding to her messages. It was strange, living in the same city, but feeling like we were worlds apart. The weight of what I had overheard hung heavy over me, and every time I thought about it, I couldn't shake the feeling that my world had shattered in an instant. I had been blindsided, yes, but now that I was gone, I started to feel like I was in control again. It was liberating, almost empowering, to make a decision for myself without consulting her first. After all, for months, I had been the one hanging on, the one pretending everything was fine, while she had already checked out. She'd been planning her escape without a single word to me, while I was left in the dark, thinking we were still a team. Then, one evening, after a particularly restless day, my phone rang. It was Mara. I stared at the screen for a few seconds, debating whether or not I should answer. Every fiber in my being wanted to ignore it, but something inside me told me to pick up. I wasn't sure why, but I knew this call would be different. It had to be. Hello. I answered, trying to sound calm, like I had my life all figured out. Elias. Her voice cracked, sounding almost desperate. Can we talk? Please, just let me explain. I didn't respond right away. I needed to keep my cool. But the truth was, I had no idea what she could possibly say that would make any of this okay. She had already made her decision, and so had I. What do you want, Mara? I asked, keeping my voice steady. You told me you were leaving, so what's left to explain? There was a long pause on the other end. I could almost hear her trying to gather her thoughts, trying to figure out how to make sense of everything she had just thrown away. I didn't mean for things to get this far, she said, her voice shaky. I don't know what happened. Everything just got complicated. Complicated, I scoffed, the bitterness creeping into my voice. You're telling me this is just complicated? You were planning to leave me, Mara. You were already thinking about it. I heard you. I could hear her breath hitch on the other end. You heard that? Yeah, I heard it. I cut her off. I heard you talk about it. About leaving me. About being done. So why are you even calling me now? What's the point? Her voice grew softer, almost pleading. Elias, please. I never wanted to hurt you. I've been so confused. I didn't know how to tell you the truth. I thought if I stayed, I'd lose myself. I needed to figure things out. I almost laughed. So, you thought leaving me was the answer? That was your big plan. Just leave and figure it out on your own while I sit here like an idiot, waiting for you? She stayed silent for a moment. I could feel the guilt radiating from her, even through the phone. I'm sorry, she finally whispered. I never meant for any of this to happen. But Elias, I've been unhappy for a long time. I've been feeling lost, and I didn't know how to talk to you about it. I didn't know what to say. I had been trying to make sense of everything for days now, and her words weren't helping. I wasn't angry anymore, not in the way I had been. Now, I was just numb. How could she sit there and tell me all of this after everything? After I had trusted her with my life? Look, I don't know if there's anything left to say, I said, my voice tight. I've already made my decision. I'm not going back. She sighed deeply. You're really leaving, aren't you? Yeah, I said, my voice firm. I am, and I don't know if I'll ever be able to trust you again. There was another silence, heavier than the last. Then, she whispered, I don't know what I'm supposed to do now. You were my everything, Elias. I never thought I'd lose you. I felt a strange sense of satisfaction, but also a pang of regret. This wasn't the way I had envisioned things. I never wanted to be the one to end it like this, but I knew I had no other choice. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I guess you should have thought about that before, Mara. I hung up before she could say another word. And that was the last time we spoke. For a while, I couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. It felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. But with each passing day, I started to feel something I hadn't expected: relief. Mara might have been planning her exit, but now I had made the first move. I had taken control, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe again. Days passed after that call, and I felt an odd sense of calm I wasn't prepared for. It was like I was living in a fog, everything in the house quieter, emptier. Yet, there was an unsettling peace in it. I had made a choice, a painful but necessary one, and I was sticking to it. Or at least, I thought I was. Mara didn't reach out again. I'd gotten used to the silence, but I knew it wouldn't last. It couldn't. No matter how much I convinced myself this was for the best, deep down, there was a part of me that wondered if it was all a mistake. Was I doing the right thing? Had I really exhausted every option? It wasn't until a week later, a Friday evening, that things took a turn. I was sitting in the dimly lit living room, scrolling through work emails when I heard a knock on the door. My first instinct was to ignore it. I wasn't expecting anyone, and the last thing I needed was a confrontation. But then, just as I was about to turn my back and pretend I hadn't heard it, the doorbell rang again, more insistent this time. I walked toward the door, hesitant, but curiosity tugging at me. When I opened it, I couldn't believe my eyes. There she was, Mara. Her face was pale, eyes wide with uncertainty. She wasn't wearing her usual confident expression, the one that used to make me feel like everything would be okay. Instead, she looked fragile, lost. "I need to talk to you," she said, her voice trembling. I stood frozen for a moment, unsure what to do. Part of me wanted to slam the door in her face, to maintain the walls I'd built around myself. But there was something in her eyes, something raw, that made me hesitate. "Now? After everything?" I finally managed to say, my voice thick with emotion. "What do you want from me, Mara? After what you said, after what you did, you expect me to just listen?" She nodded, her hands trembling as she clutched the doorframe. "Yes, I know what I said, and I know what you heard. But Elias, please, just let me explain." I wasn't sure what I was expecting, but it wasn't this. The woman who once seemed so sure of herself, so confident in every decision, now appeared like she had lost her bearings entirely. She wasn't the same person anymore. I opened the door slightly, just enough to let her step inside. She didn't wait for an invitation. She simply walked past me, her presence filling the room with an intensity that made it hard to breathe. "I never wanted to hurt you, Elias," she started, looking down at the floor as though ashamed of what she had done. "I thought I could handle everything, that I could make it work. But I was lying to myself." I didn't respond right away. The bitterness in my chest made it hard to find the right words. She had lied to me for so long, and now she was here, trying to make me believe she had just lost her way. "You were planning to leave me," I said, my voice cold. "You said it yourself. You didn't even think I'd find out." She flinched at the words. "I didn't think you'd hear it," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I was so scared, Elias. So lost. I didn't know how to face you, how to tell you the truth. And then, everything just spiraled." I crossed my arms, still not sure where this was going. "And now? Now you want to come back? After everything?" Her eyes met mine, desperate. "No, I'm not asking to come back. I'm asking you to listen, to understand why I did what I did." I was scared. I felt suffocated by everything, by our life, by myself, by what I thought I was supposed to be. I didn't know how to escape it, how to find myself again. I stared at her, feeling the weight of her words, but also feeling the distance between us grow even more. "So what? You were just going to walk away without a word? Without considering how I might feel?" "I know. I was wrong," she said quickly. "I see that now. But what I'm asking for is a chance to explain. A chance for you to understand why I was so distant, why I pushed you away." Her words hit me like a slap, but they also planted a seed of doubt in my mind. Was this real? Had she really just been so lost? Or was this just another manipulation? Another way for her to take control of the situation? "I don't know if I can believe you," I muttered, the pain in my chest gnawing at me again. "You've already broken my trust. You've already decided that this wasn't worth fighting for." "I haven't given up on us, Elias," she said, her voice soft but pleading. "I want to fix this. I want to try. I don't know how, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes." I didn't know what to say. The words were stuck in my throat, and the silence between us was thick with all the things left unsaid. Part of me wanted to walk away, to shut the door and never look back. But another part of me wanted to believe her, to hope that the woman who stood before me wasn't just a stranger, but the person I once knew. Then prove it, I finally said, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. Show me. Don't just say the words. Show me that you're not the person who wanted to leave me. Show me that this is worth saving. Her eyes brightened, but I could see the fear in them. This was the moment where everything could change. And as she nodded slowly, a part of me wondered whether I had made the right decision by letting her in. Was I just setting myself up for more heartbreak? Or was this the beginning of something new? Something that could heal the damage we had done? Either way, I knew things would never be the same again. The world we had built was already fractured, and no amount of apologies could ever put it back together in the way it had been. I didn't expect her to show up. Honestly, I had almost convinced myself that Mara had moved on, that she had already slipped into whatever new life she had planned without me. But there she was, standing in my living room. The woman who had once been everything to me, now pleading with me to understand. It should have been easy for me to turn her away, to shut the door and walk back into the life I was trying to build for myself. But something about her desperation, the rawness in her voice, the way she looked at me, made it impossible. Maybe I was still holding on, or maybe I was just curious to hear what she had to say. I'm not asking for forgiveness right now, she said softly, sitting down on the couch, her hands twisting nervously in her lap. I know I've done things I can't take back. I need you to see that I wasn't trying to hurt you. I watched her for a long time, wondering if any of this was real. It felt like a game to me now, one that she had been playing for a while, and now I was stuck in the middle of it, unsure if I was still part of the plan. You were planning to leave me, Mara. I reminded her, my voice low. You were already making plans behind my back. How do I even trust that this isn't just another lie? She winced, her eyes brimming with something between guilt and frustration. I know, she whispered, almost too quietly. I messed up. But everything I did, it wasn't just about you. It was about me too. I felt like I was losing myself. I didn't know who I was anymore. I wanted to believe her, I really did. But there was a part of me that couldn't shake the feeling that I was being manipulated. I had been in relationships before where everything felt like a game, controlled chaos that made you question what was real. And right now, this whole situation felt like just another version of that. I get it, okay? I said, my voice rough. You were lost. You didn't know what you wanted. But that doesn't excuse the way you handled it. I know. She nodded quickly, her hands tightening around the edge of the cushion. And I'm sorry for that. I really am. But what I'm trying to say is, I want to fix this. I don't want to be the person who walks away from everything we built. I don't want to throw it all away. There it was again. The line. The thing she kept repeating. I want to fix this. It felt rehearsed, like she had said it so many times to herself that now it was a script she couldn't escape. Then prove it, I said, sitting down across from her. Prove that you're not just playing some game with me. Prove that you're serious. Her eyes met mine, and for the briefest moment, I saw something vulnerable there, something real. But it didn't last long. The wall she had built around herself was still there, blocking any chance of reaching her. I will, she said quietly. I'll do whatever it takes to make it right. But as she spoke, I couldn't help but wonder if this was all just another round of the same game. She had already shown me that she could play me like a pawn, making me feel like I was in control, when in reality, she had always been the one pulling the strings. And now, as I sat there listening to her, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was falling into the same trap again. But what if I was wrong? What if this time it was different? What if I could trust her again? The questions swirled in my mind, leaving me more confused than ever. All I knew for sure was that I wasn't ready to let go of the woman who had once been my everything. But I wasn't sure if I could survive another round of heartbreak. And as Mara sat there, looking at me with those eyes full of unspoken promises, I realized I didn't know what to do next. I was caught in her web, and I wasn't sure if I could escape. I woke up the next morning with a heaviness in my chest, the kind that sinks deep into your bones and doesn't let go. Mara's words echoed in my mind. The way she said she wanted to fix things, the way she looked at me with that mix of desperation and hope. I should have been relieved that she cared enough to try, that she wasn't giving up. But all I felt was confusion. I had always been the type of person who trusted easily. It was one of the reasons I had fallen so deeply for Mara in the first place. I believed in the good, in the idea that love could fix things, that it could heal wounds. But now, after everything, I wasn't sure what to believe anymore. The days after our conversation felt like a blur. Mara tried. I'll give her that. She tried to be the woman I remembered, the one who laughed at my terrible jokes, the one who would hold my hand for no reason at all. But every time I looked at her, I saw the cracks. I saw the distance between us, the invisible wall she had built, and it made it hard to believe any of this was real. Then, a week later, something happened that I wasn't prepared for. I found something I wasn't supposed to find. It was late, and I had stayed up working in my office. I needed to clear my head, to focus on something else for a while. As I walked through the hallway toward the kitchen, I noticed something on the kitchen counter. Mara's phone, left carelessly out in the open. It was buzzing with a notification, the light flashing as it vibrated against the surface. I shouldn't have looked. I knew that. But curiosity, that damn feeling, got the best of me. I picked it up and unlocked the screen. The first thing I saw was a message. It wasn't from her friend like I had expected. It was from someone named Jake. "Can't wait to see you tonight. It's been too long," the message read. I felt my stomach tighten. Who the hell was Jake? Why was she keeping this hidden from me? The message wasn't just casual. It was personal. Too personal. I didn't want to believe what I was reading. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through the conversation. And there it was, confirmation. They had been talking for weeks, maybe longer. There were messages about late-night meetups, inside jokes, things that no one else would know. I put the phone down quickly, as if it could somehow erase what I had just seen. My mind was racing, but I was paralyzed. I thought I knew Mara. I thought I understood her. But this was a side of her I had never seen. And suddenly, the reality of everything she had said to me, everything she had promised, felt like nothing more than a carefully constructed lie. I didn't confront her immediately. I couldn't. I was too angry, too hurt. I needed to process what I had just uncovered. The next few days were a blur of anger and disbelief. Mara continued to try to mend things between us, but I couldn't look at her the same way anymore. Every smile, every word, felt like an act. I could see through it now, the carefully rehearsed behavior she was using to cover up what she had been hiding. It wasn't just the messages. It was the way she acted, the way she had been so distant, so unavailable. I had seen the signs, but I had refused to acknowledge them. I had wanted so badly to believe that things could go back to how they were, that I had ignored everything that didn't fit into that fantasy. One evening, I decided to confront her. I couldn't keep living in this limbo, pretending that everything was fine when it clearly wasn't. "Mara, we need to talk," I said, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. She looked at me, almost relieved, like she had been waiting for this moment. "Of course," she said softly. "What's going on?" I walked over to the kitchen counter, picked up her phone, and handed it to her. "Who's Jake?" I asked, my voice tight. Her face drained of color, her expression faltering for the first time. She opened the phone slowly, her hands trembling as she read the messages. "I can explain," she said quickly, but the words felt hollow. "Elias, please let me explain." I shook my head. "No more explanations. I've heard enough. How long has this been going on? How long were you planning to hide this from me?" Tears welled up in her eyes, but I didn't care. "I didn't want to hurt you," she whispered. I was confused. I thought maybe I could find something with him, but I never meant for it to get this far. "So, you were looking for something else? Something I wasn't giving you?" My voice cracked as the words spilled out, but I didn't stop. "I wasn't thinking straight," she said, her voice breaking. "It was a mistake. A huge mistake. I love you, Elias. I never wanted to hurt you." The words felt like knives, cutting through the small remnants of trust one had left. She loved me? If this was love, what was betrayal? I stood there, frozen. I had so many questions, so many emotions swirling in my head, but I didn't know what to say. I couldn't look at her the same way anymore. The woman who had promised to be with me forever was now standing in front of me, apologizing for something she couldn't take back. The truth was out now, and there was no going back. The silence between us felt like a thick, suffocating fog. Mara stood there, holding her phone in her hands, tears rolling down her cheeks, but I couldn't bring myself to feel sympathy for her. Not anymore. The anger inside me was growing, but it was mixed with something else, something darker. A deep sense of betrayal that twisted in my gut. She kept saying the same thing. "I'm sorry, Elias. I never wanted to hurt you." But the words didn't matter anymore. The truth had already been laid bare in front of me. She had betrayed me, and now, no amount of tears or apologies could take that back. I stepped back, pacing around the room, trying to think clearly, but nothing made sense. "How long has this been going on, Mara?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. I needed the truth, the full story, no more half measures. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Instead, she looked down, the weight of her guilt pressing down on her. "A few months," she finally said, her voice cracking. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. It was a mistake, Elias." I shook my head. A few months? That was months of deception, of lies that had been building and festering. It wasn't just a mistake. This was something she had planned, something she had allowed to happen. "How could you do this to me?" I asked, the question hanging in the air like a threat. "After everything we've been through, you just throw it all away?" Her shoulders slumped as if the weight of the world had just fallen on her. "I don't have an excuse. I've been selfish. I got lost in it. I thought maybe he was the answer. I thought I could be happy with him, that maybe he would give me what I was missing." The words cut through me. She was telling me she wasn't happy with me, that I wasn't enough. The foundation of everything we had built together was crumbling before my eyes. "But you didn't even talk to me about it," I said, my voice shaking with disbelief. "You didn't come to me. You just—" I couldn't even finish the sentence. I know. I was scared. I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't want to hurt you." I laughed bitterly, the sound hollow in the empty room. "You didn't want to hurt me? But you went ahead and did it anyway, behind my back." The more I heard, the more disgusted I became. It was clear now, she didn't want to fix things with me. She had already made her choice. She had already moved on, and I was just the last to know. "Why are you telling me this now, Mara?" I asked, a strange calm settling over me. "Why didn't you just leave when you wanted to? Why come here and pretend like we can fix this?" Her face crumpled in sorrow, and she took a step forward, reaching out to me, but I backed away instinctively. "Because I was afraid," she whispered. "Afraid of losing you for good. I was so caught up in this affair, I didn't realize what I had until it was too late." I couldn't even look at her anymore. Every word out of her mouth sounded like another lie, another attempt to make me feel like this was all somehow my fault. She had already made her decision, and now she was trying to make me part of it. But I wasn't going to fall for it. "You've already lost me, Mara," I said, my voice steady. "You made your choice when you decided to hide this from me. You didn't respect me enough to be honest. So don't come to me now acting like you're the one who's been wronged. You've already made your bed. Now lie in it." Her face turned pale, as if the truth had just hit her with the force of a sledgehammer. She took a step back, her eyes wide with shock. "Elias, please, I'm begging you." But I didn't want to hear it anymore. I turned and walked away, heading for the door. I didn't even look back as I opened it and stepped outside. It was over. The relationship, the years of memories, the trust, all shattered in a matter of weeks. There was no going back. Not now. Not after everything she had done. I had tried to be understanding. I had tried to listen. But in the end, I realized something I hadn't wanted to admit. Mara wasn't the person I thought she was. And I wasn't the person I had been when I first fell in love with her. I needed space. I needed to be away from her, from all of it. I needed to figure out who I was without her in my life. As I stepped into the night, the cool air hitting my face, I felt something shift within me. A strange sense of freedom. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe again. The weight of Mara's lies had been lifted, and now I had the chance to start over. I just didn't know where to go from here. The night felt colder than it should have been. I stood there on the porch, looking out at the empty street, the silence almost deafening. It was like the world had paused, waiting for me to make the next move. But what was the next move? I had no idea. My mind kept replaying everything that had happened over the past few weeks. Mara's coldness, her words, her lies. I thought about the moments when we were happy, when I believed everything was perfect. But now, those memories felt like a cruel joke. Everything I thought I knew about her had been turned on its head. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. She had betrayed me in the worst way possible. She had lied to my face, hidden things from me. And now, she was trying to play the victim. It was infuriating. But there was something else, something I couldn't shake. A strange emptiness. I had spent so much time being angry, being hurt, that I hadn't stopped to think about what I wanted. What did I need now? What was I supposed to do? I couldn't go back. That was certain. The trust had been broken beyond repair. But I also couldn't ignore the fact that I had been emotionally drained, tied to a version of our life that no longer existed. I needed to move forward. I needed to reclaim control of my life, of my happiness. I didn't want to talk to Mara. I didn't want to explain myself, didn't want to hear her apologies anymore. But the reality was that we were still tethered together in some way, and I had to deal with it. For my own sanity, for my own peace. As I made my way back inside, I saw her sitting on the couch, looking at me with wide, uncertain eyes. She opened her mouth to speak, but I raised my hand to stop her. "Stop," I said, my voice firm. "I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like things are fixable. You made your choice when you lied to me, when you betrayed me. There's no going back from that." She opened her mouth to respond, but I cut her off again. "I don't want your apologies. I don't want your excuses. I'm done, Mara." She looked at me, stunned, her face pale. I saw the tears start to form, but I didn't care. I had been holding on to this relationship for far too long, trying to make it work when it was already beyond saving. "I'm leaving," I said, turning toward the door. "And I'm not coming back." The finality of those words hit me harder than I expected. Leaving Mara wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I had to take control of my own life, my own future. And for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of clarity. I had made the decision. It was over. As I stepped out the door, leaving everything behind, I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel angry anymore. I just felt free. It wasn't the freedom I had imagined, but it was a start to finding myself again. I didn't know what the future held, but one thing was clear. I was done living in a lie. I was done being someone else's backup plan. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe. It wasn't until the days after I left that I truly understood the weight of what had happened. I spent time away from the house, reflecting on everything that had gone down, trying to make sense of my emotions. The anger had faded, replaced with a quiet, undeniable sense of relief. I wasn't trapped anymore. The air felt fresher, and every step I took felt lighter. I didn't realize how much I had been suffocating in that relationship until I was free. I moved into a small apartment on the edge of town, far enough to get away from the memories of Mara and our old life, but close enough that I wasn't completely isolated. At first, I wasn't sure what to do with myself. I spent the first few days just breathing, just existing. But then something unexpected happened. I began to rediscover who I was. The man who had been buried beneath years of compromise, of trying to make things work when they shouldn't have. I started taking care of myself again, hitting the gym, reading books I'd put off, reconnecting with old friends I hadn't seen in years. Slowly but surely, I was finding myself again. But while I was healing, Mara wasn't. I heard about her through mutual friends. At first, I didn't care. I didn't want to know what she was up to. But then, a few weeks later, I got a message. It was from one of her closest friends, and it was not what I expected. "Elias, I don't know how to say this, but you need to know. Mara's been seeing Jake, the guy she was texting. It's all come out now. Apparently, she's been hiding it from everyone, including him. And he's not who she thought he was." I read the message several times, not fully understanding what I was reading. What happened between them? How did she end up there? But as the details slowly began to unfold, I realized that Mara's new relationship had been as much of a lie as our marriage had been. Jake, it turned out, wasn't the sweet, charming man she thought he was. He had been playing her from the start, stringing her along with promises he never intended to keep. He had a whole other life, a history of using people, and Mara had fallen for every single lie. When she found out the truth about him, the relationship fell apart just as quickly as it had started. But it didn't end there. The word spread fast. The people who had once respected Mara now saw her for what she really was. And that's when the real karma hit. She was left with nothing. The trust she had shattered with me, now shattered with everyone else too. Her reputation, the one she had spent years building, crumbled. Her friends, the people she had relied on, distanced themselves. Meanwhile, I was moving forward. I was taking control of my life, and for the first time, it felt like the universe was rewarding me for walking away when I did. The weight of the past was slipping away, piece by piece. I found a new sense of purpose in everything I did. Work, relationships, even little moments in life that I had overlooked before, they all became more meaningful. One evening, a few months later, I ran into Mara in the most unlikely of places, a coffee shop I had started frequenting. I saw her before she saw me. She was sitting alone, staring at her phone, looking smaller, more vulnerable than I had ever seen her. The confident woman I had known was gone, replaced by someone who looked completely lost. She looked up, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. The air between us was heavy, thick with everything unsaid. I had no anger left in me, no bitterness. In fact, seeing her in that state made me realize how far I had come, how much stronger I had become. "You look good," she said quietly, almost unsure of herself. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I offered her a small, almost amused smile. "I'm doing all right. Better than I ever was with you." Her eyes dropped to the table, and I could see the regret in them. But there was nothing left to fix, nothing left to salvage. "You're not going to apologize, are you?" I asked, not out of anger, but out of curiosity. She shook her head, her voice soft. "I don't think anything I say could make up for what I've done." I nodded. "You're right, but you'll figure it out. You always do. Just don't come back to me for another second chance." "I'm past that." For a moment, she seemed to want to say something else, but she didn't. She simply nodded, standing up slowly, as if she were giving me one last silent apology. As she walked away, I watched her leave, but this time, I didn't feel anything. There was no sadness, no longing, no resentment. I had let go. I was free. And as for Mara, I knew that her choices, her lies, her manipulations, had caught up with her in the harshest way possible. The universe had a way of balancing things out, and she was now living with the consequences of her actions. I turned back to the counter, ordered my coffee, and walked out with a sense of finality. The past was gone. I was finally ready to move forward, and this time, it was on my terms.